Are you leaving the armed forces? Good, you're on the right channel. Oh, it's a bit windy today. So I want to carry on from episode 1 and talk about the courses that you should maybe consider when carrying out your resettlement, so that you spend those enhanced learning credits or early service leavers credits on courses that will benefit you and make that CV stand out. And I really want to concentrate on those of you who aren't sure what you want to do when you leave, you maybe don't have the qualifications and really are feeling a bit, oh, I don't know what to do. Don't worry, you're not alone. That can be a common theme. My experience is you guys make brilliant project managers, or guys that work in health and safety management and things like that. So stay tuned and we'll discuss this more at 2,000 feet. On my last year, I pretty much went balls out and crammed all these courses in. And I spent my resettlement on PLC courses, NEBOSH, oil and gas safety management. I did other things as well. And I made myself sellable. So now, I had a CV, as per episode 1, with my qualifications on it, that had electrical engineering, management qualifications. If I didn't want to go down that, I had health and safety qualifications. If I didn't want to do that, I had other things as well. So these are all skills that you've got to sell yourself. The Navy, Army, Air Force, Armed Forces basically are paying for that. I know some Royal Marines who are now electrical guys. I know Royal Marines are now working offshore in health and safety. I know Army guys who are working as electrical guys as well, and also working offshore. Security. Oh my God, another sought after job in this horrible climate that we live in at the moment. Security is another thing. I know guys that were in Afghanistan and left the armed forces after a few tours, came to the end of their time, and they went straight back doing security on probably quadruple what they were on before. But you know, if that thing floats your boat, then you have the skills to do that. So don't for a second think that if you're leaving the armed forces and you don't have any qualifications or you're not sure what to do, believe me, you have a shed load of skills without even starting to write your CV that you don't know of. Some of the armed forces guys I've worked with made absolutely brilliant project managers, made fantastic health and safety guys, and guys that have worked in the engineering trade or working on aircraft, working on submarines. You know, you work on stuff that's pretty high tech, so you can easily take that to City Street. Working on PLCs, automation, control systems, electrical engineering, hydraulics engineering, mechanical engineering. Not a problem at all for you guys. You've worked on far worse. So take all that into account. You have amazing skills. You would be surprised, but you've just got to get these bits of paper under your belt, just so that you are sellable on your CV.
Next morning.
Let's go for a walk. We'll go up a hill where I'll show you an old NATO transmitter site from the Cold War, and we'll recap on what we were talking about earlier. So, let's recap. So this applies whether you're Army, Navy, Air Force, you're from the Marines. Getting that correct courses done during resettlement is a must. The sad fact is, unfortunately, is you're probably going to have to work that little bit harder in your CV than your CV counterparts. Why is that? Well, basically, you're going to lack the experience that some of these guys have. And that's because you're coming from an organisation
that many people don't know much about in the HR department. So sadly, you're going to have to man up, woman up, and get that CV sorted. Your civilian counterparts may have been doing that particular job since they left school, so you've got to contend with that. So you've got to stand out. Again, you may not know what you want to do. You may be leaving with no qualifications or a trade. In my experience, since leaving the armed forces and looking at CVs and hiring people from the armed forces, is you make incredibly good project managers. You also make incredibly good HSE managers, or people working in the health and safety, HSE environment, whether that be offshore in the oil and gas industry, whether that be in industry in general. So don't worry if you're not sure what you want to do, if you lack any qualifications and you're worried about the future. These are some considerations to think about in your chosen career. So let's talk about project management. Let's just say that's what you want to go into. You'll have likely project managed certain things in the armed forces, but that's not good enough. You're going to need the qualification to go with it. So two of the most popular qualifications, and probably the most recognised in the UK, are Prince 2 and also APM. The courses are about a couple of weeks long, usually with a multi-guess exam at the end, and you'll be qualified to Prince 2 or APM at the end of it. And that will back up anything you've already project managed, which you can put into your CV. So considering these qualifications during your resettlement, to spend your enhanced learning credits on, or your early leavers credits, is a consideration. As usual, I'll stick a link in the description as to what these actually are, and also I'll stick some links into the description on some LCAS accredited training companies. Well, it's getting a bit windy, hoping you can hear me. So what we're going to do is, there's an old abandoned hunting lodge up here. It's been here since 1779 and used by one of the lords of Stricken way back in those times as a guest house after a hard day's hunting. So we'll talk about NEBOSH and health and safety from there. Well, here we are. Let's get a cup of coffee and we'll talk about going into health and safety and the qualifications I would recommend for that during resettlement. So, if you're considering going into the health and safety world when you leave the armed forces, again, you've probably got a lot of the skills needed. You've probably written risk assessments, method statements, you've probably been a health and safety rep during your time. But again, this is not enough just to have that in your CV. You may get away with it, you may get a job on the back of that, but really, during your resettlement, this should be backed up with a recognised qualification. The most recognised qualification in the United Kingdom for health and safety is NEBOSH, which stands for the National Examination Board of Occupational Safety and Health. And there's a general certificate that you can conduct. Again, it's a couple of weeks of course with a practical at the end and an incredibly good bit of paper to have. So spend your resettlement credits wisely, and I would consider taking this if you're going into the health and safety world. There are bolt-ons that you can stick on the end of that as well. So if you're going into the oil and gas industry, you can extend the course by a week and have your NEBOSH oil and gas certificate as well. I did that one in my CV. Because I was keeping my options open when I left the armed forces, because I wasn't sure if I was going to do engineering, health and safety, whatever, so I kept my options open. So again, links for NEBOSH in the comments, and also some recognised LCAS accredited training providers, so worth considering that. Just move my camera, it's getting windy in here. So another thing to consider as well is you don't have to necessarily go and spend your resettlement money on expensive leadership and management courses. One thing to consider as well is, and this is almost like a free good qualification to have, Whether you've done 5 years in the armed forces or 22 years in the armed forces, you will have done some sort of leadership and management training. Whether that be survival courses, leading a team over the Brecon Beacons, things like that, talking from the Navy aspect there. So what you can do is you can apply to City and Guilds UK, and with the evidence of these courses you've done, you can send that to them and you can get a qualification out of it. Now, personally, me, I did 22 years in the Royal Navy. I got to the rank of Chief Petty Officer, so I've done quite a few leadership and management courses. So I was able to give them those as evidence, and from that I was given a certificate, a graduateship in leadership and management. So called a GCGI, Graduate Certificate in Leadership and Management. So that's worth a diploma. And another thing to put on your CV, check mine out. So try not to go on these expensive leadership and management courses. Many companies will be glad to take your money and do this. So just be careful. If you apply to City and Guilds, you'll probably find that you'll get something out of it. Links to City and Guilds in the comments. So we'll take a walk towards Mormon Hill transmitter site. So this is a dinosaur of the 1960s. It's an early warning radar station during the Cold War, in case those pesky Russians launched missiles, and was apparently station number 44 of a complex series of communication networks between the US and the UK. So basically, we're going to have a quick look at that. It's all BT masts now and things like that, but it was quite significant during the Cold War. And en route, we'll talk about some of the engineering qualifications that you should consider looking at during resettlement. Let's crack on. So, I'm officially blowing out my arse now. So we're at the top of Mormon Hill. If you're leaving the armed forces with a trade, you might have been an artificer in the Army, REME, or the Royal Navy, or avionics, electronics, mechanical in the Air Force, then there are a number of things you need to consider. Again, you will have all the engineering skills, but you just got to back them up with some pieces of paper. So, for example, you could be working on these assets here when you leave, or assets like that. If you're in electronics, electrical, avionics, things like that, then I would highly recommend doing a course on PLCs, programmable logic controllers. These are going to be around for a long time. Little computers, and they are in everything, from the defence industry to the transmitters, car industry, to the oil and gas industry, things like that. So it's worth taking up a course on that. Now, you can either go down the programming route or the hardware route. I went hardware, and when I went into Civvy Street, I ended up working with PLCs quite a lot. Another thing to think about is your 18th edition BS 7671 wiring regulations. You may be able to wire anything up, but you know, it's good to have that piece of paper. Now, you don't necessarily need to pay for that out of resettlement. I think it was £400 or something, so I just did it myself. So worth doing that. If you're thinking about designing or building panels in explosive environments, how you do it, then think about ATEX courses, your EX 1 to 3, worth doing. And having these bolt-on, these qualifications in your CV will help dramatically. So also another thing, whether you're hydraulic, electrical, mechanical, and you're wanting to go into the design side of engineering, then get to know AutoCAD well. I don't think you need to go and spend money doing courses. There are plenty of online courses you can do. So get to know that for designing and building hydraulic and electrical circuits. If you're a hydraulics guy going down the hydraulic route, then your BFPA, British Fluid Power Association, hydraulics courses 1 and 2, I recommend doing those. Again, you may have worked on some complicated hydraulic systems, but have that on some paper as well. And again, these courses are widely available. A lot of them are LCAS accredited. Again, I'll stick them in the links for some accredited companies that do that. So even if you're coming out with a trade, back them up with some qualifications that are recognised in Civvy Street. Okay. Well, I think that's all I've got to say. To recap, really, there are a lot of you who are going to leave with no trade and maybe no qualifications. But I've pointed out a few courses and a few areas that you could probably go into in Civvy Street. If you are coming out with a trade in engineering, etc., then back these up with the accredited courses in Civvy Street, and that will get you going. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, Stick any questions in the comments, recommendations. I haven't gone through every single course in the world, like accountancy and things like that. Sadly, that's not my field, but I can certainly go and find out some information for you. So once you've got these qualifications, you'll be able to get them in your CV and back up your brilliance as an armed forces leaver. Good luck. Again, any questions, throw them in the comments, and I'll be glad to help. Right, got all that way to walk back now.